After watching the Oprah interview last night, I went to bed genuinely intrigued how the British press would react. Now, I knew that if the claims made by Meghan and Harry had been less serious, then the British press could just say, look, they're being snowflakes. They're blowing this all out of proportion. And to be honest, that's what I was expecting. That's what I was expecting the debate to be this week. But given the allegations were such clear-cut examples of racism and mistreatment, our press corps only had two options. So one of them was to say, this is a serious problem. We need to take this seriously. There's obviously something going on in the palace and reform is needed. Their other option was to say, she's a liar. You know, they only had these two options. No longer could they say she's just being a snowflake because no one is willing to defend, prying, asking and concern about the skin tone of a baby. Now, I was particularly interested to hear from Piers Morgan. Now, sometimes it can be kind of unpredictable what position he's going to take. And he has spent the last week obsessively tweeting about Meghan and Harry, calling them whining attention seekers. I was wondering if he was going to say, after watching this interview, I've changed my mind. Let's take a look at how he, in fact, responded.
OK, again, let's have the names. Who did you go to? What did they say to you? I'm sorry, I don't believe a word she says, Meghan Markle.
Well, that's a
I wouldn't believe it if she read me a weather report. And the fact that she's fired up this onslaught against our royal family, I think is contemptible.
Now, I probably should have guessed Piers Morgan, truth seeker he is, has clearly weighed up the prejudices of his fan base and decided there was no option but to dismiss the allegations. He is not willing to contemplate that possibly someone high up in the royal family could be racist. That was a very short clip of Piers Morgan. Let's take a look at a slightly longer rant from the Good Morning Britain host.
They've trashed his dad. They've trashed his brother. They've trashed his sister-in-law. They've trashed everything the Queen has worked so hard to maintain with the monarchy. And they're supposed to believe they're compassionate.
They felt they were trashed. They felt they were lied about. She said that she was driven to the verge of taking her own life.
She says that, yeah.
They have absolutely, obviously,
and members of her female staff at the palace say they were bullied by Meghan. And when those allegations were made, her team came back and said it was outrageous, dismissed it, didn't take them seriously at all. But we're supposed to take everything she says as absolute gospel.
No,
and we're supposed to give that respect. She showed no respect for the alleged bullying victims that she apparently traumatised. And I've had one account of one of them. And I can tell you, if they start talking, we're going to hear a very different story about the Duke and Duchess of Compassion.
Yeah.
But we're not allowed to hear their stories because they've been dismissed out of hand.
No.
By Meghan and Harry.
We have reported
those bully victims,
on those allegations.
Their stories don't count. Only their truth counts.
So you can see what Piers Morgan has done there, and it's quite clever. He said, because Meghan and Harry dismissed the bullying allegations against Meghan, because their lawyers dismissed those allegations, we can dismiss anything that Meghan and Harry say. The problem is he has seemingly forgotten that he's not actually a lawyer for the Queen and Prince Charles. He's supposed to be a journalist. So when Meghan and Harry's lawyers say you should dismiss those complaints, we don't recognise them as true. That's what their lawyers are saying. You as a journalist aren't supposed to say, oh, of course, if their lawyers are saying that, that's not the case. So just the same in this situation, if there are serious allegations from Meghan Markle, you have to take them seriously because you're not the Queen's lawyer. You're a journalist. You're supposed to be, at least attempt to be somewhat objective here. Now, it might have frustrated you watching those clips. Don't worry, because this wasn't actually an entirely depressing episode of Good Morning Britain. Refreshingly, Piers Morgan got completely destroyed by a couple of guests. So the first was Dr. Shola Moz-Shogbamimu, and she started by challenging Morgan's unquestioning deference to the Queen.
What kind of grandmother would be so close to her grandson, Harry, but then not use her power and influence as Queen to protect them from the racist media coverage? What kind of grandmother will protect her own son, Prince Andrew, from the potential crime of raping a minor, but will do jack all to protect Harry and Meghan? Especially, I have no doubt that she would have heard about the suicidal thoughts and the help and support she needs. And then you sit there hammering on about how the royal institution is not racist. Are you out of your godforsaken mind?
No, you know what? I find what you're saying about the Queen actually disgraceful.
The royal family as an institution is rooted in colonialism, white supremacy, and racism. The legacy's right there. So you're now surprised that a comment would have been made by several members of the royal family about how dark Archie's
It's not
skin is.
several members, actually. No, you can't spew
you
lies.
Are more outraged that Harry and Meghan
are we allowed to
about
engage in
that
any of this?
Let me finish.
Well, you're not stopping.
Outraged that Harry and Meghan had the audacity to speak that truth than you should be at the actual outrage of racism.
Delicious seeing Piers Morgan get a taste of his own medicine there. The argument was incredibly well put. Why would you be surprised that this institution could be capable of being fairly goddamn racist? And why are you so annoyed at them speaking about what's happened to them? You'll notice that Piers Morgan, I mean, at times he sort of said, oh, maybe there's some factual errors, but basically the main thing he kept turning to was, well, he said actually in response to Shola there, if you watch the whole clip, he said, this is disgusting because the Queen and Philip essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, are both elderly and the latter is in hospital. So he's saying they shouldn't be making these claims because these people are old and ill. I mean, I don't think portraying the Queen as sort of like a defenseless victim works that well in this situation. Let's go to one final clip from Good Morning Britain, because it wasn't just Dr. Shola who had a go at Piers for his reaction to that Oprah interview. He was also challenged by his colleague at ITV, Trisha Goddard.
Why is everybody else such an expert about racism against black people? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Piers. You don't get to call out what is and isn't racism against black people. You can call out all the other stuff. I'll leave you to call out all the other stuff you want, but leave the racism stuff to us.
I just think, okay.
So charismatic. I love Trisha there. You're watching Tysky Sell on Novara Media. We go live every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 7 p.m. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We have videos going out every day. Ash, you've had a fair number of run-ins with Piers Morgan. I want your take, I suppose, both on his decision to say, oh no, she's just lying. Kind of a brave move, brazen, you could say. And then, I mean, that really effective takedown from Dr. Shola, especially. And then also, I mean, Trisha's sort of more light-hearted dig at Piers, I thought were both brilliant, actually.
I mean, so I think what Piers Morgan has done is that he's made an assessment of where his audience is. It is generally a right-of-centre audience, people who have very little time for what they see as the indulgences of the younger generation. So the younger generation are all snowflakes, oversensitive. They're wrapped up in their own trauma. They hate this language around, white supremacy and being made to feel guilty just for the crime of being white. And they certainly hate hypocrisy. Now, this was a tweet which I saw, I think last week, and for the life of me, I can't remember who it was that tweeted it, but it was a very good point. And it was talking about the way in which hypocrisy has been elevated to the cardinal sin above all others, so that if you're seen to in any way slip from the principles that you espouse to other people, so in this instance, Piers Morgan talking about compassion, then you forfeited all right to be seen as a legitimate or valid player on the field of public discourse. And the reason why hypocrisy is such an effective line for the right is because they don't believe in anything. They don't believe in appealing to the better angels of your nature or a more compassionate kind of world or a more sustainable kind of world. So you're never going to be caught out being hypocritical if you don't believe in anything. So it's a really effective line to take when you've got an audience like Piers Morgan's, which is both very moralizing and very judgmental, but also deeply cynical, particularly about what they see as virtue signaling. So I don't think it's surprising that this is the line that Piers Morgan ended up taking on the Meghan Markle issue. I do also think that there's something really weird about this sort of tenacity and ferocity with which he tweets about her, and this kind of burn that she never sort of, replied to him when he wanted her to. I don't know. Far from me to suggest that there's something pathological about that. I also think that from my own run-ins with Piers Morgan, something that I saw in him is that it's really hard to tell what the performance is and what he's genuinely feeling. So both times when I had arguments with him, though I've since had, kind of calmer interactions, he seemed really genuinely angry at me. And there was sort of comments made as I was walking off of the set. And I just thought, wow, you really do get this wound up. Like, what the hell is going on with your blood pressure? Like, are you on the statins, bro? Because maybe you need to be. I don't know. I think maybe it's the thing where someone's performed a role for so long, they can't tell where the edge of that is and where their actual personality begins. So I think he's got this phenomenal ability to just rile himself up into this kind of froth and a flap, and really believe it. The thing to remember is that he's got a very keen sense of what makes good TV. He's dedicated to, achieving numbers and that's it. And he's found a way to do that by, I think, appealing to a really reactionary vein of opinion in this country.
I'm going to show you a clip which maybe shows us the root of why Piers Morgan really hates Harry and Meghan. Take a look at this clip and decide if you think that maybe there is something deeper going on than what Piers is making out.
Very intelligent, I thought, very smart, very charming, very warm, very direct with eye contact. She was a really nice person. And she seemed to me to have a sense about her of being concerned about issues, concerned about the planet, the environment, women's rights. She's got that campaigning streak too. But I really liked her. I'm just sad I lost her as a friend. It's like, Harry, you could have thought of me here, buddy.
You're quite bitter about this.
Well, I'm not bitter, just sad.
Yes.
Mainly because I don't get the Suits episodes, and that really kills me. But also, I just thought we were friends, Meghan. What happened? But I get it, because Harry, the moment it became serious, there's no way Harry wants Meghan Markle anywhere near media people, just period. Doesn't mean I haven't ruled out that I might get an invite to the wedding.
So you haven't yet?
No, but I just think Meghan will be sitting there thinking, you know what, I owe that guy one. I really owe that guy
What does she owe you?
She owes me an invitation to the wedding to make up for cutting me dead.
Let's get some perspective here, because I showed you that clip. It's almost quite lighthearted. Is it just that Piers Morgan is pissed off that he didn't get invited to a wedding? But you've got to remember the claims that Piers Morgan was making this morning on Good Morning Britain, which was essentially someone who he is speaking about very respectfully there. He seems to like her as a person back then. And now when she's talked about being suicidal and being blocked from getting any help, he's saying she's lying, right? And so going from that position to saying she's lovely, but I'm a little bit annoyed at her, not getting invited to the wedding, and now speaking to millions of people on national television saying when she speaks about racism against her unborn child, or when she speaks about her own mental health difficulties, it's probably a lie. Now, Ash, I want you, as you say, you've met Piers Morgan much more than I have. Is this really a sort of like pathological outgrowth of not being invited to a wedding? I mean, it would have been a great wedding. I would have loved to attend, but it seems like a slight overreaction.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I actually just don't buy that. I don't buy that. I think that he wants us to think that it's pathological and enraged, because that also drives engagement. Piers Morgan is also quite happy being the story and being at the center of conflict. He's quite striking in being able to be genuinely furious with you, and that anger is rolling off of him in a way which feels very tangible and quite distressing when you're in the room with it, to then being incredibly cordial, not kind of, at the same time, but then, about a year later, I went back on Good Morning Britain to talk about the coronavirus. And, he was laughing and chuckling away at things I had to say, was very, very polite, very, very cordial. And I don't think that one is any more genuine or fake than the other. I think that he's almost devoted the entirety of who he is to existing within the media and getting the story and telling a narrative which is going to get eyes on it, that he will fully commit himself to whatever it is the moment demands of him at the time. So I think that really this is about responding to that kind of reactionary vein of opinion that exists within this country. And if that vein of opinion was seen to shift, and if Meghan was positioned somewhat differently in relation to it, I think he'd see him switch back just as easily. And I think that kind of, I think it's a mistake to try and identify authenticity from people who exist at the top of British media. If they were authentic people who are sort of driven by the things which are deepest and most real about them, they wouldn't have gotten to the position where they are.